The Devil All the Time is directed by Antonio Campos and stars Tom Holland, Bill Skarsgård, Robert Pattinson, Keough, if I pronounced that right, Jason Clarke, and among others. And this is based on the book of the same name by Donald Ray Pollock. And in this story, it deals with two different time periods that are going on that deal with interwoven storylines that are connected by the themes and radical religion that the characters that are that are related and cross paths with each other throughout. And the first half, it deals with Bill Skarsgård, who is coming back from World War II and ends up having to start to have his own beliefs of how he sees religion after having a haunted experience in the war. But as he develops his a family in his life, his son starts to grow up to see the radical signs of religion that affects not only his father but the various other characters, including these serial killers, a corrupted preacher, a corrupted cop, and a disturbed preacher that he meets along the way. And now here's a little backstory. Now I've been hearing about this movie that when it first came out because I got intrigued with the cast behind it, and the premise of it looked interesting with how it kind of deals with this whole like very dark religious angle that it goes with, and the fact that you got all these like huge lists of stars that almost are like majority of them come from like a lot of the superhero films that we've seen. It's just crazy, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and all that with Tom Holland and the guy Sebastian Stan who plays Bucky from the Winter Soldier, and among all the other various like talented actors. Like this movie just had like a huge cast that I really got interested in, and I really like this whole dark turn that they were going to try to go with like. It kind of had like a mixture of a Coen Brothers movie mixed in with like some of those like very backwoods type like films that deal with that are trying to tell like a message about how people come together and stuff, or they share the themes of like how these people are all connected in some way. And it was like a Coen Brothers mixed in with like an episodic, or I'm sorry, a ensemble cast type of film like Magnolia. So that's what really got me intrigued based off of that alone, and also the psychological take that they were taking with the whole, the beliefs and the faiths that the characters were going through. And after finally seeing the film, I can honestly say that I actually really enjoyed it. It's got its flaws on a major problem that I had with the film, but overall, like I got into this movie quite a lot. Now to get my pros out of the way, the performance in this film I already knew were going to be great, including Tom Holland, and it was also great seeing Robert Pattinson in a very different type role than what he's been used to. And like going into it, that was like really my main like kind of thing. Like okay, I wonder what they're going to bring to these type of cast members. And I gotta tell you, like the two that really stand out for me the best are Tom Holland and Robert Pattinson. Because Tom Holland, I think this is probably one of his best performances I've ever seen. Because this is the most darkest and like most like very nuanced performance that I've seen him do in pretty much anything. And I also really gotta give him a lot of credit because not only is he really fucking brutal in this movie, and I didn't really think it would go that far, but when it showed the emotions in certain scenes, he really goes for it, and he already pulls it off the way he is able to capture the essence of this character that you really followed like majority throughout the film, that you're really in like their eyes, like from like when they're starting out as a kid up until he starts to grow up and becomes the older version of the character who's played by Tom Holland. And so I really got to give it a lot of credit to Tom Holland the way he pulled it off. And Robert Pattinson was also great too, and while he's not quite as on screen like I thought he would be, when he is on screen though, he really commands like a great presence. And not only is he very like charismatic in the way that he's preaching, because he plays this preacher that's in West Virginia that, let's just say, not to go into spoilers, he starts to develop he starts to have a thing with Tom Holland's character's adopted sister in the film, and it gets pretty intense in the way that it goes along with that storyline. And I thought Robert Pattinson was great as usual, and I'm glad to see that he's been taking a whole lot of different dark roles over the years, and since everybody's been associated with Twilight and stuff, and ever since I've seen him in movies like Good Time and even last year with The Lighthouse, the guy really has has really grown as an actor, and I can't wait to see what he does with the Batman coming out. And so they were great, and the rest of the cast were great too. And did really enjoy Bill Skarsgård, even though he's only in like the first half of the film. But when he's on screen, it definitely is. He does have a very intense like scene in the beginning where, not to spoil anything, but let's just say he starts to beat the shit out of people, and at this one part for them, it's that he does at the beginning, and that later becomes a mix of the themes that the story plate repeats itself on, because as the story progresses, you start to see a lot of the actions that Tom Holland's doing that Bill Skarsgård, his father, did when he was a kid. So it kind of calls back in certain scenes, which is another praise I got to give. I love the way that the director was able to really keep things going and keep it pretty much on a cycle of the way that all the characters that we meet throughout the film that are into their beliefs and stuff, they all believe into their own persona. They all have their own beliefs that really pays a big risk to not only the people involved, but it gets pretty disturbing in certain parts that I won't go into detail. But there's a lot of great like weights that the movie brings on with that, with the way that they tackle the certain things that the characters are going through and all the emotions they're going through and stuff. And so that is something I really got intrigued with. And another pro I got to give too is the way that the rest of the cast were also great as well. You got Sebastian Stan, who plays this corrupt cop, and you also got Jason Clarke and Riley Keough, who play pretty much these couple that are going around and they're pretty much serial killers. And like that's another thing, fascination I have with the way that the movie plays out with the story, is that it's able to pretty much have it structured like a book. And while it could have, I will get to a major con that I will have with this, because I feel like the way it was structured, it almost could have been possibly a limited TV series or maybe a short miniseries, the way it's all captured out. But also, what's very interesting is that the same guy who actually done the novel of the book that this was based off of, Donald Ray Pollock, he actually narrates the entire film. And I thought, not since I've seen Christmas Story have I seen something like that, where you get the actual author of the book actually narrating the film. So I thought that was a pretty good creative choice on the director's part on that. And one of my other biggest thing is that there's a lot of scenes where the characters are pretty much having to keep you on the ride, as so to speak, because there are unpredictable stuff, and there's some predictable things that you kind of know where the movie's going after a while. But when it gets intense, it gets really intense, especially when you see some of the death scenes that happen, and there's a lot of pretty menacing stuff that a lot of the main cast go through. And I also got to admit, though, that the production design is very authentic too, including the way it's set in the 50s and 60s, and it has that really bleak look that it was going for that I thought really worked, and it really puts you in the right atmosphere. And I like when movies are set in those kind of small town type settings where it's like in the backwoods and stuff, and it kind of, funny enough, the kind of small town area and stuff reminds me of another movie Jason Clarke did with Lawless. And all that in that old kind of forest type setting and stuff. So I really enjoyed the look that the movie was going for, and the authenticness that the characters' wardrobe and stuff like that. Now here's where I get to a major flaw that I have with the film that kind of bogs it down for me quite a bit. As much as I love the cast and I like the way that they are going with the story and being able to push a lot of the themes surrounding the way that they with their beliefs and stuff. Unfortunately, it does have a problem with the screenplay, because there's not a whole lot of focus with a lot of the main cast. With the exception of Tom Holland and maybe a couple other cast members, not going to spoil who, pretty much the whole film, most of the characters are pretty short-lived, and they're only on screen for just a handful of minutes, and it really feels like there was a lot missing that I can understand you had to pretty much fill it in for 2 hours, a little over 2 hours. But I think if they really wanted to go for it on a structure and a way to kind of fill in a lot of depth, they really could have probably made this as a miniseries or something, because there's a lot of things that feel like they come and then they're not really paid off that much when it comes to resolution on some of the characters. And when it is resolution, it's kind of resolved so fast they're kind of like drive-bys, or and it's not necessarily a huge. It's basically the main thing that boggles it down, because I feel like had they would have given him a lot more screen time, we could have really seen like a really more epic tale of this, you know, this boy who's going through like trying to kind of counteract with what his father believes in and stuff, and trying to do for the greater good. And I feel like there was a lot of time that they could have filled in to really enhance that. But given for what it is, though, I still really enjoyed the movie, and I think that that is definitely one of my favorite performances of Tom Holland, and it's definitely going to, you know, something I can recommend, especially if you're in the mood for something a more psychological take on movies that deal with like, you know, like beliefs and stuff. That, well, I mean, I'm not really saying that if you're not trying to say anything about religion or anything, but I'm just saying that it really takes a great tale about how it works in this kind of way it tells the story, is what I'm trying to say. So with that being said, since I did have that major big problem with me with the film, with the way that there was not a whole lot of depth, I am going to give the film a very high compelling grade on the Film Freaks meter. So for those of you who've also seen The Devil All the Time, and also the book that it's based off of, let me know in the comments below what you thought about it. And thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.